Hello and welcome to Under Common Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
In principio erat, chaos est.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we are finishing up our promised episodes here.
Woohoo!
Because I had mentioned that I was running a couple of programs at the local library for International Game Month, which is the month of November. And as of recording, last weekend was the first set of games for the teens. I ran a session of D&D, and unfortunately nobody signed up for my Kids on Bikes game, so I didn't actually get to run it.
Aww.
But for the D&D, I ran the Wild Sheep Chase module.
Oh, fun. Very fun.
Oh, it was great. I had two kids that were squeaky new, had never played.
Oh.
And I had two that were pretty new that had only played once or twice, and we had a grand old time. At the very end, one of them decided to use the malfunctioning Wand of True Polymorph. Spoilers, in order to use it correctly, you have to succeed on a DC 17 Arcana check, and they rolled a 4.
Oh, nice.
And if you fail by 5 or more, the wand explodes and deals 1d10 force damage per charge remaining on the wand.
Did he nuke himself?
They nuked the entire party.
Oh, awesome. Awesome death by sheep.
Well, they were trying to polymorph the wizard who is the sheep back into a wizard. So the wizard became a gibbering mouther, and everyone else died.
Oh, wow. That's
from 16 points of force damage.
That's impressive.
Because they were all level 3.
Oh, wow.
And they'd all just finished. And yes, the module is for levels 4 to 5. I modified the critters a little bit to make it appropriate for a level 3 party. It's just a little bit simpler for a one-shot to run with level 3s.
Makes sense.
And I had to do some creative fiddling because they decided initially, whenever they're first confronted with the group trying to get the sheep back, that's supposed to just be a fairly straightforward combat situation, or at least lead into a fairly straightforward combat situation. They decided to run into the general store instead.
Okay.
And so the fight happened inside the general store.
Oh, nice. Nice little bar fight. I like it.
It was complete chaos.
I wish I could have been there.
Two of them almost died in that fight. It was wonderful.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, that sounds like
we all had a wonderful time. It was great.
That sounds wonderful, yes. I'm actually really excited to learn about the Cypher system. That's one of these ones that I've always heard about, but never actually sat down and figured out. And I have really enjoyed personally the past several episodes going through some of these lesser known systems, lesser used systems, I will say. I've known of them, but I've never actually tinkered with them, and getting a feel for them has been a lot of fun.
And so I guess that is your subtle nod that I have meandered too far off the path and need to pull it back in. Because tonight we are going to be talking about the Old Gods of Appalachia RPG.
Nice.
And as mentioned, this was published by Monte Cook Games, and it uses their Cypher system. Cypher, in and of itself, does not have a setting. If you get the actual Cypher system rulebook, it has lots of guidance for how to apply it to different genres. But there is not actually a default genre or a default setting within that game. And I think one of the most popular Cypher settings is the fantasy setting Numenera.
Okay. I don't think I've heard of Numenera, but just looking at the rule set and how it works, it is extremely open, which I do like. And so, yeah, you are not shoehorned to any specific adventure. I mean, you can do literally anything. You could do fantasy, urban fantasy, sci-fi. You could probably do something like a Star Wars, or just
you could do modern contemporary.
Yeah, you really could. You could do literally anything, like I said, like an urban fantasy or treasure hunt or a pirate thing. I mean, really, it is a very open system.
It really is. And this is falling in line with the other non-D&D systems that I picked out for these programs quite unintentionally, as I was just pulling books off of my shelf of games that I owned and wanted to run.
Always great motivation.
Yeah, and so getting into it and actually reading through it, Cypher is very similar to Powered by the Apocalypse. The mechanics are different, but the functionality of the system is very similar. They're both primarily narrative-driven games.
Yeah.
They rely very little on the actual mechanics of play. I think Cypher probably relies a little bit more on mechanics than Powered by the Apocalypse would.
I would agree with that, especially when you get to like some of your status effects, I guess we'll call them, that we'll
Right.
discuss later. That is definitely more of a mechanical aspect, but I think very well done. And as we get more, I will talk about what I do enjoy about that.
Yeah. Another thing in both systems, character skills are generalized and open to interpretation.
Yeah.
You don't have, these are specific things that you can use this skill for. It is very open to interpretation. Whatever the player thinks is a valid application for their skill, if the GM agrees with them, then they can use it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's things like if I'm going to research, so I'm going to roll research, and I don't have the skill list directly in front of me right now. But that could be like digging through a library. That could be like questioning people and interviewing people, research that way. It could be going through a computer database. It could be doing like some sort of like field experimentation to figure out a result. And all of those things would lump under research if the player could like, no, I am researching in this manner to find this out. And they have some decent logic behind their explanation, it should fly.
One that I really glommed onto in the skills list, just because they happen to have an asterisk next to it to explain what it is blockading. And so blockading is the production and distribution of moonshine.
Oh.
As the general description of the skill. So that would be, knowing how to ferment and distill spirits, knowing how to smuggle things, knowing how to bootleg things, knowing how to distribute without drawing attention to yourself.
Yeah, finding
contacts, and knowing the secret back ways to evade detection. Knowing where the speakeasies are, knowing where the hidden back doors are.
Knowing who to talk to that can tell you those things.
Absolutely. So those are all things, and also like navigating the area in and around wherever your still is. So, being able to engage in security within the perimeter of a certain location.
Yeah, or like using like the stars to kind of guide, or maybe using like the cove if you had like a little like, instead of like deep mountains, if you were off like a coast, so you're looking for a little jetty or a cove or something like that.
And like how to effectively drive a car fast on a windy road.
I'm gonna go fast.
Because as we know, NASCAR was born from bootleggers.
Yep.
It was born from moonshiners outrunning the cops.
Well, that and Will Ferrell. But yes.
And then the last major similarity between Cypher and PBTA is that the GM doesn't roll any dice.
It's a little lackluster for the DM, but fair.
Oh, the GM gets so many other things that they can do. I am not at all going to be upset about the fact that I don't get to roll dice for this.
Okay.
So rather than having a 2d6 system, which is what PBTA has, there are 3 different dice.
Powered by the Apocalypse for those who, The first time I saw that, I'm like, Pabst Blue Ribbon? No, that's not right.
Yeah, Powered by the Apocalypse. Monster of the Week that we talked about last time is a Powered by the Apocalypse game. So there are 3 different dice that you need to play the Cypher system. 4 if you want to get pedantic, but we're not going to go there right now.
You're not going to be pedantic for once, really? That's like your favorite.
This time.
It's like your favorite.
Because you could still do it in 3.
You could. If you had a D100, you could do it.
Yeah. So the first one is going to be the D20. The D20 is the one that you're going to use the most often. Anytime you perform an action, you roll a D20. Anytime you resist an action being performed against you, you roll a D20. And that's how you determine whether or not you succeed. The second die you need is a D6. You use a D6 to recover points that have been depleted from one of your pools of points, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. And then the third one is the D100, which again, that can be 1 die or 2 dice, depending on which set of dice you happen to have. You could have one of the big golf ball dimpled ones. They're fun.
They are.
Completely impractical, but they're fun.
So in short, 3 dice, the D20 do stuff, D6 heal stuff, D100 all
randomizes stuff.
Tables.
Yeah, D100 is what you use whenever you have to randomize something. Primarily whenever you are finding a Cypher, and Cyphers are specifically single-use magic items, and they're going to have random effects. And you use them up, and then you find another one. And you have a certain number of Cyphers that you are allowed to have at one time. Once you hit your Cypher limit, you can't pick up any more Cyphers until you use the ones you got.
No, I'm going to pack rat them all. I'm going to start my own general store, my own little magic shop.
Right, so talking about your character, you have 3 attributes. You have might, speed, and intellect. Might is all of your physical stuff. It's how hard you hit, how hard you can be hit. It's strength and constitution all wrapped up together. Speed is your quickness and your nimbleness. And intellect is anything mental. So your intelligence, your wisdom, and your charisma, all 3 put together, are lumped into intellect.
I think this is a good streamline, especially if you're newer to table gaming or you've not played like a lot of RPGs. I think 3 is fairly easy to handle. Sometimes, the 5 or 6 for some games gets to be a lot to juggle.
But the main thing that defines your character is not their stats. It's not your might, speed, and intellect. It is their sentence. And so in Cypher, there at the very beginning of your character sheet, you have this block that says character name is a descriptor, type, who, focus. So you are a adjective, noun, who, verbs.
Okay.
Depending on which variation of the Cypher system you're running, there are usually 4 different types. Those are roughly equivalent to classes. Your descriptor tells what kind of thing that you are, and the focus tells you what you do.
Okay, I like that. I am not going to math to see how many different combinations there are.
I'm not going to do the math to figure out the different combinations, but you have 4 types, 40 descriptors, and 25 character foci.
That's 160 times 25. And damn it, I said I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
We're looking close to
3,200, almost 3,300.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Okay,
3,280.
Yep. 3,000 different character types. Have fun. You're not going to play through them all, I guarantee. I'll tell you what, if you play through them all and send us proof, we will send you a shiny something of some sort. It could be awesome. It might just be a fleck of craft herpes from a glitter jar. We don't know, but a shiny something will happen.
I mean,
you have to play all 3,200 in full games.
Yeah, you would have to play, let's say, if you played 2 sessions a day, every day, it would take you roughly 5 years, I think, to get through all of the possible combinations.
Okay, statement stands.
Something in there.
You play all 3,200, something shiny will come into the mail, but you have to send us proof of all 3,200.
Who knows? In 5 years, we might not be doing a podcast anymore.
No, we'll have our own game shop, and we'll be running everything. I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah, we'll buy Hasbro once it goes bankrupt, and
that's right. All their AI
pennies on the dollar.
That's right.
Anyway, so one of the things that I really like about the Cypher system is that you have your 3 stats, and you have a value within each of those stats. And the max value for however much you can have is called your pool. And so you can spend those points to power your abilities. And also, because you don't have hit points, the points in your pool also count as de facto hit points. So if you get hit with something, you lose points from your pool. So they're both a resource to power your abilities and the thing that keeps you alive.
Now, see, this is the mechanic I was referencing to earlier, and I find this extremely inspired. I like how they work that you're walking in and you are Adventurer Bob, you're Adventurer Petey Pete, doing Petey Pete things, and you have a set amount of agility. You wake up in the morning, you're fresh, you're full of energy, you're ready to go. And as you do things, as you try to achieve or figure out challenges, you've got to run from stuff, you got to figure stuff out. You may or may not choose to fight something. You're wearing down on that available resource. It is literally you are using your spoons for the day. And, if you use a bunch of spoons and then you get into a fight, you're not fighting at 100% because you're tired and you've done stuff today. Just like if you start the day and you get into a fight and you take some lumps, you're doing other stuff, but you're tired. You're not going to do as much as you would normally. We've had other guests when we've talked about how like HP should work in D&D, and it's not necessarily like directly like every hit does an amount of damage, but every hit wears down your resistance to damage. And I think this system encapsulates that so much better.
Yeah, I will agree with that. So most of the hits that you're going to take are going to be applied to your might pool first. That's anything that is physical damage is going to be applied to your might pool first. When your might pool hits 0, then it spills over into your speed pool. When your speed pool hits 0, it spills over into your intellect pool. When one of your 3 stats hits 0, you become impaired. And when you're impaired, everything that you try to do, the difficulty level is increased by 1.
I am definitely impaired today.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk about difficulty levels and effort and all of that here in a second. And on top of that, whenever you make a combat roll, because normally if you roll a 17 to 20, you get an extra goodie on top of it. A 17, your attack deals an extra +1 damage. 18, it deals +2 damage. 19, it deals +3 damage, and you get a minor effect on top of it. And then a 20 is +4 damage, and you get a major effect on top of it.
That's
Whenever you're impaired, the only thing you get on a 17 to 20 is +1 damage. Any of the additional bonuses that you would normally get, they all just go away. They're all just +1 damage.
That's when you roll that string of 20s. Like you get impaired and you're like, I'm 20, and a 20, and another 20. And it's like, damn it, I wasted all my 20s.
And so if your second pool hits 0, then you become debilitated. And when you're debilitated, basically you are knocked down and all you can do is crawl. But if your speed pool has been reduced to 0, you can't move at all. You are just barely coherent, laying on the ground, waiting for something to either kill or save you.
I have had those moments in life.
And then if all 3 pools hit 0, you're dead. And to quote the book, dead is dead, usually.
It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim.
So there are ways later in the game, once you get characters that are a high enough tier, they use tier instead of levels. We'll talk about that here in a minute too, where you can get powers that can bring people back from the dead.
Oh yeah, we're breaking up the necromancy.
Yeah, it always comes at a cost and it's never quite right. So use
definitely
it with caution.
Breaking up the necromancy.
Yeah.
You're not dissuading me here.
But generally speaking, if your character hits 0 in all 3, they're dead. They're just dead. Whenever you are going through the game, you can take rests to recover points to your pools. And this is where the D6 comes in to take a recovery roll. A recovery roll lets you roll a D6 and you add your character's current tier to the roll. So for a basic brand new character who is tier 1, it's going to be a D6 plus 1. So you roll your D6, whatever you get, add 1 to it. That's how many points that you can restore across all of your pools.
Now, that is one thing that did leave me with a question. With the information I was able to find and was able to look at, I did have 2 questions. 1, how deep are your pools allowed to get? Is there a cap? And then 2, how frequently can you rest? I saw a thing where like a single rest is like 10 minutes, or you could do a double rest for like 20 minutes or an hour.
No.
Okay. So I misunderstood that.
Yeah, I will explain that here in just a second.
Okay, perfect.
As far as I know, there is not a cap to your pool. The only cap is the fact that you can only increase the size of your pools once per tier. And we'll talk about that a little bit whenever we get to talking about advancing your tiers.
I'm just kind of afraid because if we're playing Old Gods of Appalachia and we come up across something that may or may not know my name in the forest, and if you're in the forest and something says your name, no, it didn't. But, when I want to boop it in the snoot and it's got, like 25 or 30 in strength alone, it's like, wait, that's too much. Help.
Well, I mean, the critters that you're going to run into are going to have a set amount of health, basically.
Okay.
They can take so much damage.
Okay.
Because all weapons deal flat damage.
Okay, perfect.
Depending on whether it's a light weapon, a medium weapon, or a heavy weapon. And they may use different terminology for that. I don't have that part written down in front of me. I know that the light weapons deal 2 points of damage on a hit, medium deal 4, heavy deal 6. And then you can add damage by applying effort to the attack or if you roll high enough.
Sounds fair, yeah.
But yeah, so with the recovery rolls, you get to split up the value of your roll across all of your pools to bring them back up to whatever their maximum value is. If you end up rolling higher than you have missing points from your pools, the extra just floats off into Neverland, never to be seen again. But the amount of time it takes for you to recover increases the more times you do it. So the first time you do it, it's just an action. It's just you catching your breath. The second time you do it, it takes 10 minutes. The third time you do it takes an hour. And the fourth time you do it takes 10 hours.
Now, is that like per session, per day, or per like whole campaign or life of the character?
That 10 hours is effectively a long rest in D&D terms.
Okay, so I wasn't sure because hey.
And once you've taken that 10-hour rest, it's assumed that you're on a new day, and so it resets.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is how often does that resting reset?
Whenever you hit that 10-hour rest, it resets.
Okay, good deal then. That makes more sense. I was curious about the exact mechanics of that.
Right, and that is a thing where whenever you are recovering points, it's not like D&D where you just automatically recover all your hit points and all your spell slots after a long rest. You still have to roll. So you're going to end up
rolling all ones.
If you decide that you're going to spend all day just resting up because you just got your teeth kicked in and you barely survived that encounter.
I really wanted to pet that puppy.
The most that you can get is 4d6 plus 4 times your tier.
It was totally worth trying to pet that giant bear puppy.
So if you're a tier 1 character with no bonuses to your recovery rolls, it's going to be 4d6 plus 4. That's what you get for a full day's rest. You might refill everything. You might not. It all just depends.
All right.
And that is a much more realistic way of recovery, I think, especially compared to the way D&D does it, where just a night's rest is going to cure all that ails you.
Yeah, I've had many a night's rest where I woke up feeling as bad as I did when I went to sleep in the evening. So yeah,
those are the nights that you rolled a 1. And
yeah. Wait, where'd the negatives come from?
So whenever you're talking about your actions that you're taking, the GM assigns a difficulty to whatever action you're trying to undertake. The difficulty runs from 0, which is a routine action. If the difficulty is 0, there is no need to roll on it. You automatically succeed.
I'm going to tie my shoe.
On up to a difficulty of 10, which is technically impossible.
I'm going to date insert model of choice here.
Right. If you're facing a creature, the creature will have a difficulty attached to it, and it may have different difficulties for different abilities further down in its stat block. But as a default, it has a set difficulty. That is the difficulty you have to roll on your attack rolls to hit it. And that is the difficulty you have to hit on any rolls that you make to resist any effects that it throws at you.
Okay.
And the way that works is you take the number from 0 to 10, you multiply it by 3. And that is the number you have to hit on your D20 roll.
So you have a maximum of 30. But you can only roll a 20.
Exactly. So this is where effort and edge come into play. Effort can be used to reduce the difficulty of a roll.
So we're going from a 20 to a 19.
So you're going off of the base 0 to 10.
Okay, yeah. So we're going
off of that sliding scale.
Okay, perfect.
You figure out your difficulty by applying effort to it. And once the difficulty has been finalized, then you multiply it by 3. So if you have a skill that you're trained in that applies, you automatically reduce the difficulty by 1 rank. If you're specialized in that skill, you get to reduce it by 2 ranks instead.
So we're going from like a 10 to an 8 now.
Yeah. And then your effort number is how many times you can spend points from your pool to reduce that difficulty by 1. So as a tier 1 character, you're going to start off with an effort value of 1. So you can spend points to reduce it by an additional 1. As you advance your character, you can gain extra effort. That effort value will go up and will allow you to spend more points to reduce it multiple ranks.
So as a level 1 character, I'm specialized in whatever task I'm going to do, and then I'm going to use 1 point of my effort. I've taken that from a 10 to a 7, and so now my goal is a 21, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
Still not attainable, but
I was going to say,
it's lower.
Squeeze one more in there somewhere? Like, can I get one more point?
I mean, you're not... A reasonable GM is not going to throw any difficulty 10 things at a tier 1 party.
I'm going to jump across the Grand Canyon and I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a run.
All right, Evil Knievel.
I've got my cape and everything.
Yeah. But so Edge is a point cost reduction whenever you're using a specific pool. So each of the 3 stats have a pool value and an edge value. And the cost of spending points for effort is reduced by your edge value. As far as I can tell, your edge maxes out at 3 for each individual thing. Because the first time you spend effort to reduce a difficulty, it takes 3 points out of your pool. And each subsequent point of effort that you apply takes an additional 2 points.
So as a level 1 character, would I be able to use that point of edge and drop that required roll from a 7 to a 6?
No, you're reducing the number of points you have to spend to use your effort from 3 points to 2 points.
Okay, perfect.
And
still not jumping that gorge.
Yeah, if your edge ends up getting all the way up to 3, the first point of effort is free.
Huzzah!
So if you're able to spend multiple points of effort, let's say your effort value is 3, normally it would be 3 points for the first rank of effort, another 2 for second, another 2 for third, for a total of 7 points. If your edge is also 3, then you ignore those first 3 points out of your pool for that first rank of effort, and it's just the 2 for the second and the 2 for the third, so for 4 points total. You get to reduce the difficulty by 3 ranks.
So at level 1, I can't seduce the dragon, but I might be able to pull it off for level 2.
Maybe.
And it's going to turn into some greasy old miner man, right?
And because tiers max out at tier 6, your effort maxes out at 6. So you can, at most, you can reduce the difficulty of a task by 6 ranks using effort.
Okay, no, that sounds reasonable. You shouldn't be able to make an impossible task completely feasible. That's a bit much. But even going from a 10, which would be, again, a 30 to a 12 is not bad.
Well, if you manage to do this, let's say that it also uses a skill that you're specialized in, so you get to reduce it from a 10 to a 2.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, that takes everything.
That means you have to roll a 6 or higher you have a 75% chance of success.
I rolled a 3.
But you're also spending
everything.
10 points from your pool to do it.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a big investment.
That is I do this or the party wipes. Yeah. But I mean, I like it though that you can, and again, it makes me feel happy. I kind of like the blood magic in a lot of different games, but you are going to sacrifice of yourself to do this extraordinary thing. Absolutely, it should come at a cost, and I really do like that mechanic.
Yeah. You know, if you're one of the classes that uses magic and you're casting a spell and you're blowing 10 points of your intellect pool to pull this off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a major magic that is going to wreck your psyche.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. Or just my,
absolutely.
take an arm and a leg.
Uh, Edward.
Edward, brother.
Uh, anyway,
So many
so
rabbits.
the last mechanical thing to talk about with regards to the Cypher system is XP. XP comes fairly frequently in a game played in the Cypher system.
Make it rain. Oh, wait.
And there are numerous things that you can spend XP on. The big thing that you can spend XP on are advancements, and I'll talk about the specific advancements here in a minute. There are 5 checkboxes at the top of your character sheet for advancement. You have to check off all 5 of those boxes in order to advance up 1 tier for your character. And that's how you unlock additional abilities for your type. You unlock different bonuses for your descriptor and your focus, but primarily you're unlocking stuff for your type by increasing your tier. And that also increases, the value of your recovery rolls and things like that. But the most common thing that you're probably going to be spending XP on is you can spend 1 experience point anytime the GM tries to do something that they have called a GM intrusion. So a GM intrusion is you're playing the game and there's a narrative beat where the GM can throw a complication at you. And if you allow that complication to happen, you get 2 experience points. You have to give 1 of them to another player at the table, but you keep 1 of them.
Okay.
And that's a pretty easy way to accrue experience points if you have a GM that likes to throw complications at you.
I don't know anybody like that.
Not at all. The fun thing is, if you roll a 1 on a check, the GM gets to have an intrusion for free.
Ooh.
But even on that free intrusion, where they don't have to give you experience points for it, you can still spend an experience point to deny it.
I totally all I can hear was it Scott Brown? Scott Brown, I've got a showing when you talk about GM intrusions.
Yeah, that is a Seth Skorkowski video. I will throw it into the show notes because it is amazing.
Yes.
But that's the primary thing that you're going to spend experience points on is when something bad is about to happen because the GM intrudes, you can spend an experience point to say, no, that doesn't happen.
That's kind of fun. I think given the relationship between players and GM, depending on where they at and where they know each other, that could be a wonderful point counterpoint type thing. I think that would be a lot of just table interaction.
Yeah, and it feels a lot like the action point system from Fallout, the Fallout game.
Yeah, a bit, yeah.
A little bit different, but it does have that same sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
You can spend 2 experience points to get a specialized skill training. This is one of those things where if you're getting ready to do something and you just really need somebody who can do a certain thing, somebody can spend 2 experience points to say, actually, I have a skill that will apply in this situation.
Okay.
So things like if you're in the woods and you're trying to track down this monster, you can say, oh, I've been out hunting in these woods all my life. I can follow these tracks.
Okay, so now you become specialized in tracking.
And so you get a specialized skill that allows you to specifically follow tracks in the woods.
Now, will that last for the rest of the game, or is that specifically for that instance?
It is going to depend on the nature of the skill when you take it.
Okay.
It could be temporary, or it could be permanent. It could be a permanent skill that is just hyper specialized.
Okay.
Or it can be a temporary skill that is something that is one of those stroke of genius sort of things.
Okay, I like it.
The next thing you can do is you can spend 3 experience points to get a long-term benefit, such as getting a contact or otherwise helpful NPC ally, get a home to use as a base of operations, get a title, a job, or a position in the community, or acquire wealth.
Yeah, dollars.
And then the last thing is you can spend 4 experience points to pay for an advancement. So the different advancements that you get, one is increased capabilities. So you get 4 points that you get to put into your might, speed, and intellect pools divided as you choose.
No, I was going to ask that advancement. Is that for one of those check boxes to get to a tier, or is that separate?
These are the things that you have to check off each of these boxes.
Okay, perfect.
You have to check off all 5 boxes in order to advance to the next tier.
Okay.
And when you advance to the next tier, the box is clear, and you have to check them all off again.
Okay.
So it's going to take 20 experience points specifically devoted to advancement to get from one tier to the next.
Perfect.
So yeah, the first one is you get 4 points to assign to your pools. The second one is move towards perfection. You get to increase the edge in one of your 3 stats by 1.
Okay.
The third one is extra effort. You get to add +1 to your effort. The next one is skill training. So you get to train in a skill. So you get to either gain a new skill, you get to specialize in a skill that you already have, or you get to remove an inability. So inabilities are the inverse of a training. That means that you're not good at this thing. And so whenever you have to use this skill, you actually take a 1 rank penalty. So the difficulty goes up 1 rank whenever you try to do it.
That's like for me. I enjoy cooking, and I can cook fairly well. I suck at grilling because I never really had much opportunity to do it. So for me, I can cook, so cook would be a skill, but I have an inability to grill.
And then the final one that you get is the other box. So there are 4 options under the other box. You can reduce the speed penalty from wearing armor by 1. You can increase your recovery rate by 2. So whenever you roll a d6 for recovery, you get an additional +2 recovery every time you roll.
That's so hard.
Yeah. You get to select another character ability from your type.
Ooh.
So you get to unlock extra bonus abilities.
Tempted.
Or if you're at least tier 3, you get to pick another ability from your focus.
Nice. Okay.
Because your focus is also going to give you abilities.
Okay.
And so once you have checked all 5 boxes, your tier goes up 1. You unlock additional bonuses from your type. Your recovery rolls get bigger, and you just get to assign more stuff.
So at tier 6, you're looking at getting a +8, a +10 to your recovery rolls?
If you pick increase recovery rate by 2 every single time, yes, you would end up getting, it would be 1d6 +16 every time you rolled.
Snazzy.
Because you would have +2 5 times, plus your tier, which is 6.
Nice. I like it. I'm invincible.
You're a loony.
Yeah, there's that too.
Now, we're not going to go into all of the various descriptors and the foci.
We're not doing all 3,200?
Yeah, right?
Oh.
But I did want to
put the popcorn back.
I did want to very briefly go over the 4 types that are specifically in Old Gods of Appalachia, because they are different than the base Cypher system rule set. They are customized to the Old Gods of Appalachia setting. The first one is the Protector. Protector is going to be a more physical character. These are going to be characters like
your meat shield.
Yeah, well, they're going to be like, the identity suggestions that they have are bodyguard, butcher, engineer, guard, logger, prison guard, railroad worker, sheriff, shepherd, or veteran. So these are going to be your manual laborers. These are going to be your law enforcement guys. These are going to be your enforcers for criminal organizations. These are going to be soldiers, things of that nature.
When they say engineer, they mean like train engineer. I was thinking like, why is an engineer on that? Train engineer. Gotcha.
Train engineer.
With you.
the person who operates the engine.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just thinking like the bespectacled, like, Oak Ridge, white apron with the pocket protector. Like, you know what? Some of them are beefy. Why not?
Yeah. And so, these are individuals who their role is to deal and soak physical damage.
I like it.
At least in combat. And, they can have various different social applications as well. So like a sheriff, that's somebody who their job is to uphold the law and provide security and safety to the people, or if they're corrupt, to further the agenda of whatever company is running the town, things of that nature. So that is the first one. The second one is the Sage. Their identities are Bruja, Doctor, Folk Healer, Granny Witch, Healer, Layperson, Midwife, Nurse, Remedy Man, Root Doctor, Seer, Spellcatcher, Student, Witch, and Yarb Doctor.
What was that first one?
Bruja.
Not the VTM class clan?
No, there's no H on the end of it.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with what that is. I'm going to have to look that up after the show.
Well, I mean, just going off of context clues, it's going to be like a folk healer of some sort. An herbalist, a medicine person,
Apothecary type thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of a shaman type. I'm assuming. I could be completely wrong. I'm just, as I said, going off of context clues here. But yeah, these are going to be your healers. They're going to be the people who are going to be providing defenses against various hostile things. They're going to be able to cure ongoing status ailments. They're going to be able to help restore hit points.
They're going to know lore.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I like it.
So, see here. Others look to sages for protection, support, knowledge, and creative solutions to problems. So they're thinkers. They think their way through a problem. They use their accumulated knowledge in order to overcome obstacles rather than using brute force.
Okay.
Next is the Explorer. So identity suggestions are Caver, Bookwoman, Boomer, Firefighter, Frontiersman, Hunter, Librarian, Miner, Mountain Ranger, Mountaineer, Publisher, Reporter, Scientist, Seeker, Teacher, Traveler, Wanderer, Woodsman, Writer. Okay. So these are your creative and curious folk.
I like them.
So these are people who are going to be seeking information. They're going to be seeking all kinds of information. They're going to be looking for the most eclectic stuff.
This is going to be the person that will, in fact, open Pandora's box.
Yeah.
I mean, I would too. I just want to know what's inside.
But they're also going to be adrenaline junkies.
Oh, yeah.
Adrenaline junkies are also going to fall into this category. They're going to be people who are doing things for the excitement of it.
Yeah, I like it.
Because things like Boomer, that is somebody who, in modern parlance, would be a pyrotechnician or an explosives expert. This is a bomb squad guy.
Yeah, I was thinking like you had the people laying the railroad tracks and they would use the dynamite.
Yes, they're the people who handle and use the dynamite for blasting.
With various levels of concern or safety.
With various numbers of fingers, yes.
Exactly. Hit reverse, Terry, hit reverse.
Yeah. So yes, because, Firefighter is also on that list. Caver is on that list. These are people who are intentionally entering dangerous situations. It could be for altruistic reasons, or it could be purely to fuel their need for adrenaline.
Yeah, I mean, I would do it out of sheer curiosity. I am definitely the cat that curiosity has tried to kill many, many, many times. So no, I can feel these characters.
Yeah. And I should also mention that each of these types determines what your starting values for your 3 ability pools will be.
Understandably, yes.
I mean, you get additional points to assign, to fill out, and customize, but the baseline point values are determined by which of these types you choose.
Okay.
So, like, the Protector is going to have might as their biggest thing, and then the Sage is going to have intellect as their highest. And then the last one is the Speaker. Identity suggestions are actor, company man, foreman, lawyer, mayor, musician, pastor, politician, preacher, salesperson, storyteller, teacher, union boss. This is your charismatic individual.
Yeah, these could be definitely fun characters.
This is the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Speaker is the face of the party. This is going to be anyone who is trying to be convincing. This is anyone who is trying to glean knowledge specifically from other people, who is trying to sway the opinions of other people, who is trying to deceive other people.
These are your con artists, and like you said, like your preachers, your speakers, your government leaders. Yeah, these are generally a lot of fun.
Yeah. And again, their top thing is going to be intellect because all of your mental abilities are tied into intellect. So
Okay.
your charisma and your intelligence would both fall under intellect.
No, I like it. I'm trying to think of what kind of character I'd want to play. I'm somewhere between the explorer and the speaker, I think. And I don't know. I'm sure there's some characters that kind of meld the two, and that's probably what I'd wind up playing.
Well, that's the thing is because your character is your sentence, you can use your descriptor and your focus to hybridize.
Oh, nice.
I mean, you can be a protector, and I could take a descriptor and a focus that would open me up to more magical stuff. And so then I would be able to, utilize certain protection magics in addition to being a big meat shield.
You just made a paladin again.
Absolutely, I did.
Ew.
But this is the good kind of paladin that uses blood magic.
Okay, fair. It's like nature, everything just eventually becomes a crab. For Ian, everything eventually becomes a paladin.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just the kind of character that I like to play. I like playing smashy characters that are self-sufficient.
Yes.
And a paladin is that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the big thing for Old Gods of Appalachia. A couple other details with regards to XP that I forgot to mention. One is that if at any point a player manages to accrue 10 experience points at one time, the GM can make you spend them.
Oh, wow.
The GM can say, no, you have to spend your experience points because you're not supposed to hoard them.
But I was saving for my next level.
Well, you're going to have to go ahead and start buying stuff because, you got 10 experience points.
You're too much. Not too much.
And then the other thing for gaining experience points is character arcs. So there are character arcs. You can choose a character arc for your character at first level or at creation. And each game session that you succeed in advancing to the next thing on your character arc, because it has a beginning, a number of steps, and then a conclusion, or a climax and then a conclusion. So each time you manage to complete the active task in your character arc, at the end of that session, you get 2 experience points.
Okay.
And at any point in time, you can spend 1 experience point to buy an additional character arc.
Ooh, interesting.
And so that is another way to accrue experience points in a little bit slower but more regular manner. And it gives a mechanical incentive for character development, for actually focusing on what your character wants to do to develop and to advance your character's personal story.
Okay.
And some character arcs have like 7-8 steps. Some of them only have like 3. And so it's something that is I like it much better as a guidance system for how your character would roleplay than something like, say, the alignment system.
Gotcha.
Because the alignment system is just words on the top of the page that you may or may not adhere to.
Yeah, I get that.
Character arcs give you a goal, and it's up to you, A, whether or not you want to interact with that in this session, and B, the nature of the interaction.
No, I like that, yeah.
Because if you choose to interact with it, you are rewarded with experience. And that gives you that incentive to continue interacting with it, which only advances the character development and makes for better roleplay. So yeah, that is Old Gods of Appalachia, the gist of it. I found a wonderful video on YouTube by a creator called Mr. Tarask, which is, learn how to play Cypher in 5 minutes. I think we went a little beyond 5 minutes.
We did, but his is very short, succinct, and well done.
Yes, it is very much the highlights. You watch that video and you know about 80% of what is necessary to play the game.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than that. It's basically just telling you, these are the dice you need. This is how you roll. This is how you calculate difficulty. these are your stats. This is the gist of how a character goes together. He has a separate video that's about, I think, 15 or 20 minutes long on just creating a character.
Okay.
But yeah, this is one of those games where if you just have the list of all the character focus and descriptor words that you can use for building out your sentence, you can create a character probably in 5 minutes.
Oh, nice.
And, you know, there's nothing to say that you can't work with the GM to create your own descriptor or focus or even type. Type would be a little more complicated because there are a whole bunch of options tied to a type, but you could totally do that in here. It is absolutely set up in a way to help foster that sort of creative development. I guess what I'm saying is it's easy to homebrew.
Yes.
Where it is a narrative-based game rather than a mechanics-based game, you don't have to worry so much about balancing the way that you would in D&D.
Okay.
Especially since your descriptor is not going to have a huge mechanical effect on the game. And your focus is going to have a mechanical effect, but not as big as your type. So yeah, I think that's just about got it for tonight. I'm really looking forward to running this. This is not going to be, as of recording, this is not going to be this coming weekend, but the following weekend. So it's going to be the Saturday after this episode comes out. And
yeah, this should be a fun session.
And I am currently working on the adventure I'm going to run. I was initially going to do a revamp of our liminal horror adventure because I'm in the process of trying to rewrite it anyway. But I think instead, in order to get the proper timeline feel for the game, I'm going to do the events immediately preceding the flooding of the lake initially.
Okay.
Because I have that at the beginning of the adventure as sort of a background lore. And so that's something that I'm interested in and I want to flesh out a little bit more. And so I think that would fit because that would have happened in the late 40s, early 50s, which would be more of the Old Gods of Appalachia timeline. It's a little bit later than what the main story is going, but not by much.
Yeah, no, that would fit.
Yeah. It isn't modern day, and I really think that Old Gods of Appalachia really shines in that, you know,
that 1880 to 1930-ish. They call that the Gilded Age, I think.
Right. Gilded Age into the Great Depression into immediately post-World War II.
Yeah.
I think once we get into the big boom and the big expansion of suburbia that we have post-World War II, I think that Old Gods of Appalachia sort of starts to fall apart as a thematic setting.
Yes and no, both. I think right after that boom, because some people were still trying to go back home, and
right. That's why I'm saying up into like the mid 50s. I think the mid 50s would probably be, and primarily because we just don't have enough episodes of the podcast in that time period to really draw from, because that's not the focus of the podcast. Focus is in the late 20s to the mid 30s.
Yeah.
So far.
And I mean, culturally, you can look at a lot of things. And again, a lot of that older culture was lost in the 60s and on. And like I said, it really is kind of a thing of our generation where we're looking back and trying to rediscover some older things, which is great. But I do think a good bit was lost for a time.
And there were huge numbers of people from this area who ended up leaving the area and going, especially up to the Detroit area, to work in the auto manufacturing plants.
Yeah.
There was a huge exodus from this area going up into Michigan just to work in the manufacturing plants up there. It was the reverse of the post-Civil War carpetbaggers. It was the poor Southerners heading north to seek a better financial situation.
Yeah. Though when you do bring it up like that, it also gets a bit of, the Neil Gaiman book. Was it Old Gods? It wasn't Old Gods. What was
American Gods.
American Gods. It definitely starts getting that feel because, again, you did have those people that left, a lot of their home, a lot of their culture, a lot of their family stories behind. And then they pop up in the weirdest of places. And it's like, I remember hearing this from grandma. I remember hearing this from grandpa. My uncle, used to tell me this, around a campfire during the summers. And I always thought it was a story, but maybe there's something to it.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you everybody for listening, especially as we wax poetic here at the very end. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or come over and join us on our Discord. You can find a link to the Discord and all of our various and sundry social media accounts through our website, undercommontaste.com. You can also find links to our Patreon, patreon.com/undercommontaste, or our itch store, undercommontaste.itch.io. I am in the editing stages. I have actually completed it, so I'm telling you about it now. We had talked about making a solo game surrounding going on a pilgrimage. We talked about that way back in one of our biome episodes. I can't remember which one it was. Was it Rivers or Foothills? It may have been Foothills.
Yeah.
But that game has been written. It is going to be a tarot-powered solo journaling game. I have a few people reading it right now, and I'm waiting for feedback, and I am going to do a round of edits, and then I'm going to try and do some layout on it. I'm still not very good at layout, but I'm getting better.
It is a learned skill.
Yeah. My goal is to have it done by the end of the year so that I'll be able to add it to the Solo But Not Alone 5 bundle if there is one in January.
Excellent.
So yeah, that's what I've been working on lately. Whenever I've not been working on trying to get my handyman business that I'm starting up off the ground.
Huzzah.
So yeah, that is a thing because this does not pay bills. And I have bills that need paying.
They do add up quite quickly. If this is your first time listening to us, we thank you for listening to us. You can find our other podcasts on your podcatcher of choice. I also welcome you to join me on twitch.tv under Common Taste. I stream on Mondays and Thursdays. Our videos right now are up for a week at a time. I am playing both Darkest Dungeon on Mondays and Neverwinter Nights on Thursdays. And I am doing some side art projects as well with ZBrush, doing some 3D modeling intermittently, generally on the weekend or sometimes on a day in between. You can catch those videos on our twitch.tv/undercommontaste.
Thanks again for listening. Stay safe, everyone, and we will talk to you all again in 2 weeks.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Undercommon Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Ann, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.